The views expressed on this broadcast of the Take 12 Recovery Radio Show do not necessarily reflect those of KHLT Recovery Broadcasting or its affiliates. KHLT and Take12Radio.com are not affiliated with any particular 12-step fellowship.
Remember me, I'm the one down on the floor, telling these people that I ain't there no more. Calling in the street, just about to lose my mind.
Welcome to Walking Through the Big Book with Chris Schroeder and Monty Meyer. And now, here's those two guys who investigate prior to contempt, Chris and the Monty'man.
Yes, indeedy. And, I'm going to say it now because I'm just not going to put up with the happy holidays by itself. Even before Christmas, I'm going to say it now. Merry Christmas to you all. It is a pleasure to be with you. Welcome to Walking Through the Big Book with Chris Schroeder and the Monty. I don't know why I'm laughing right now. I guess I'm just real chipper. I was up too late, Chris.
That happens.
So at any moment I could just crumble. So we'll just pray that doesn't happen. How are you, man?
I'm doing great, Monty. I'm doing great. As soon as we're done with this show, I'm on my way down to North Carolina to meet up with the C4 people. You know that you've met the C4 people.
Yes, the C4 people.
The new project. This is very interesting. I just want to talk about this for a minute. The new project that they're on. There is a document management system that's been designed specifically for treatment centers. And C4 is in the process of developing an outcomes piece that's going to be integral in that document management system. Now, what's been happening in treatment, which is unconscionable for the last millions of years, is every other form of medical treatment or psychiatric treatment has what's known as outcomes. You measure a patient's progress in a number of different ways to make sure that, number one, that the treatment methodology is appropriate for the client, and number two, that there's forward momentum as far as someone getting better. Now, for a million years in addiction treatment, you go to the 28-day programs or the 90-day programs. Very rarely is there any outcomes followed. Now, every other form of treatment for anything, the data is at such a granular level that you'll know whether scalpel A will give you a better survival rate than scalpel B. And the fact of the matter is it's been so absent in addictions. So people will throw you into a program, a 28-day program, and then you get discharged, and they don't know if it worked. They don't know what real progress you've made because there's not been an adequate measurement diagnostic as far as outcomes. Does the person respond to this? Has he stayed sober? What kind of quality of life is showing improvement? None of those things have been operative in the treatment industry. And, coming out of the dark ages of addiction treatment, more and more people are going to be expected to follow outcomes for reimbursements and everything else. So, we're in the process of trying to develop a real applicable tool for the industry to follow outcomes. So I'm going down to that board meeting, and I'm going to hear about the progress that's being made. So it's very interesting.
Excellent. Well, have a great trip. You can keep the humidity.
I don't think it's going to be too humid down there. I'm checking the forecast, and it's going to be, in the 30s at night and in the 50s during the day. So it's not going to be all that great.
Well, that sounds like a great tool to have, and the guys at C4 certainly are the ones that will be able to do that. So say hi and give them my best to all of them down there, and Rick and so forth. Yeah. Great. Okay, I know you like to recap. We are in the chapter the Into Action, and for those of you who have just joined us, who have never been on the show before or never listened, this is walking through the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, and we've been going word by word, sentence by sentence, page by page. This is an extremely thorough study. When we're done with this, it'll probably be the most thorough that you'll hear, at least to now. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely. You know, where we stand today, Monty, is we're moving into step 6, 7, 8, and 9 is what we're going to do today. Now, step 1, you hopefully you've been able to recognize that you're either A, an alcoholic, or B, not an alcoholic. You know, it's probably in your best interest to figure out that you're not, but let's just say that you are. You know that you have a mind that will during periods of insanity, get you back into the liquor, no matter what decisions you've made, no matter what the consequences may be. You're going to drink again because that's been your pattern, and it will continue to be without some form of spiritual experience. Your body is set such that once you start drinking, you have little or no control over the amount you take, and there's unmanageability presenting in your life emotionally, within personal relationships, mentally, physically. There's consequences problems are piling up on you, and they're becoming astonishingly difficult to solve. And hopefully you get exposed to a recovery process somewhere or another, and you start to believe that you can access a power greater than yourself. You can place yourself in the sunlight of that power, and that power can help you recover from alcoholism. That's the second step. Step 3 is coming to believe that there is a power greater than yourself. You make a decision to access that power by going through the rest of the steps and developing and improving a contact with God, a relationship with your higher power. Step 4 is really looking at where you've failed at life, the causes and conditions of your alcohol, your behavior that's led to this problem. You know, what are the things about you that contribute to your alcoholism, like selfishness and self-centeredness. You really start to look and see the truth about how you're showing up out there in the world. In step 5, you share that with another person and with God and with yourself in a very, very brutally honest way. And then you're poised basically for step 6 and step 7, which we'll start on. And that's on the top of page 76. Top of page 76. Prior to that, the construction, the returning home part, where the construction references ask you to very, very diligently see if you've left anything out of the first 5 steps. If you've left anything out of the first 5 steps, it will sabotage you moving forward. If you haven't been completely honest in your 5th step, you're not going to get a lot out of steps 6 through 12. So it asks you to really think very, very deeply about, have you been fearless? Have you been thorough with uncovering and discovering the truth about your stock and trade? If you can answer, it says here at the top of page 76, if we can answer to our satisfaction that we haven't left anything out, that we've been as fearless and thorough as possible, we then look at step 6. We have emphasized willingness as being indispensable. Like, are you willing to go to any lengths? Are we now ready to let God remove from us all the things which we have admitted are objectionable? Can He now take them all, every one? If we still cling to something we will not let go, we ask God to help us be willing. So this really is basically step 6. After we've done the inventory and shared the inventory, we're at a place where, yes, we are absolutely willing to let God remove the big defects of character, like drinking, like getting arrested, like always not showing up the way we want to in our lives. A lot, we can answer yes to a lot of that stuff. However, there's layers that we need to consider. are we going to allow God in to every aspect of our life? Are we going to allow him into our sex life? Are we going to allow him to guide and direct us in our business life? If there are still some things that we're not willing to put in the hands of this power greater than ourselves that can restore us to sanity, there's a prayer. Because, again, I don't know about you, Monty, but this was a process for me. Yes, I can take this step, but that doesn't mean that it's 100% internalized. That doesn't mean that I'm 100% willing to let God take everything, because there's still some things that you'll hold on to, and Bill knew that. And part of the step is, if there are some things that we're not willing to let go of, like our sex life, like our business life, like the way we treat our family, because we really think that we know everything that needs to be known about being a family member, and we're going to continue to keep telling these family members what they should be doing and how they should be operating. If we're not willing to let those things go, we ask God to help us be willing. And we'll say a prayer like, God, please help me be willing to let go of the things that I'm still hanging on to.
Mm-hmm.
It's simple prayers like that. And, Monty, you understand the power of prayer. Simple prayers like that get answered.
Let me ask you this, Chris. It has been said that though this is the shortest step, at least in text, that this is the one that separates the men from the boys. Can you explain that?
Here's the thing about that, and this is my perspective, maybe not Bill's when he was writing Step 6 in the 12 and 12. My perspective is this is a lifetime job. Yes, you initially take this step, but there are going to be things that are going to rear their ugly heads in your life, because you're going to be out there and you're going to continue to bang heads with the universe. There's going to be a continued discipline necessary to continue to remind yourself that now God is running the show. He's my director, and I need to be directed by God. I need to not take the reins in my hands, because I've done such a bad job when I've been steering the horse, that I must now start to allow God into every aspect of my life. And that does separate the men from the boys, the girls from the women. It does, because of the amount of pressure the ego puts on us to stay in control. The ego does not want to give up control. When we seek through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God in step 11, seeking guidance from God and operating on the intuitive guidance that we get, that takes fortitude. That really takes a spiritual discipline that many people are not going to be able to do a real good job with. So maybe that's what Bill meant by separating the men from the boys. I really am not absolutely sure about what he had in mind when he was helping to write the 12 and 12.
Very good. I've heard it said many times, and I'm sure you have too, by well-meaning folks, today I am working on my character defects. And I have to chuckle a little bit about that, because I don't know about you, Chris, but when I'm trying to work on them by myself, I don't get anywhere.
Well, self would have to defeat self. A house divided. Okay, Satan cannot fight Satan. Self cannot fight self. A house divided. Here's how I describe it when I'm doing a workshop or I'm working with somebody. Do you know that arcade game Whack-A-Mole, Monty?
Yeah.
Okay, that's when you take the mallet and a mole's head will pop up, and you got to smack the mole in the head before another mole pops up. That's you working on your character defects. Every time you smack down on something else will pop up. Okay, you're whacking the mole when you're trying to take care of your own character defects. Now, some really good people have said step 6 is not doing what you want to do, and step 7 is doing what you don't want to do. I think that's a horrific oversimplification of this. God is involved in this. Yes, we need to participate. There's a wonderful statement in the 12 and 12 that says, God will not render you white as snow without your cooperation. I think what our cooperation is in this step is being aware and then asking for God's help and continuing to do that as a spiritual discipline. That's what's worked with me. Me trying to not be selfish or me trying to not be lustful. That lasts about a minute and a half. You know, because self cannot defeat self. Selfishness, self-centeredness, that is the root of our troubles. So if we go into this without God's help, we're going to a gunfight with a penknife.
Makes
You know
a
what
lot
I mean?
of sense. Yeah.
Does that make any sense?
Yes, it does. And if
Okay,
if no human power can relieve our alcoholism, then that's no human power. Ourself
No
or
human power,
yeah.
and certainly not self-knowledge
No.
or self-determination. You know, those are both human powers also. The power must manifest through you from a power greater than yourself. That's how that's what the big book is about. Now, if you have problems with that, then you have problems with Alcoholics Anonymous. You don't have problems with Monty and Chris. You've got problems with Alcoholics Anonymous, because this whole program is about accessing the power of God. If you have a problem with God, or you don't believe in God, or you think that's all malarkey, and you're one of those guys that just goes to a lot of meetings, well, that's all well and good, but that's not what Alcoholics Anonymous is. Alcoholics Anonymous is a program designed to bring you to a place called Recovered, where God will be doing for you what you cannot do for yourself.
Amen.
Again, there's a lot of people who see that as hardline, or a conservative Nazi type of program philosophy. It's just AA. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what this whole fellowship and whole program was built on: accessing the power of God. And again, in step 6 and step 7, that's what those two steps are all about. Now, does that mean that all of your character defects are going to be removed today? I don't know. It kind of is more up to God than it is up to us. I had a lot of problems with character defects holding on after I did these steps. And you know what? Sometimes God uses our character defects to help other people. We need to consider that also. My ego was not put under control right away, even though I was asking for it to. Maybe God needed a little bit of my ego for me to get out there and to do some of the things that I've done. Because I think if you had zero ego, I'm not really sure that you would have done some of the things that I've done. And some of the things I've done have been really helpful to people. So who knows? What you need to do is you need to participate. God will not render you white as snow without your participation. You need to participate, and then you need to let go of your attachment to the outcome. You're going to want the character defects that are causing you personally a hard time removed. You're going to be less interested in the character defects that might harm others. Well, God might have a whole different plan for you. And part of this recovery process is being open to that and allowing God into your life to mold you, to guide you and to direct you and to build with you as He will. Think about that. That's one of the main prayers. God, please, to build with me and do with me as Thou wilt. Okay, so He's going to build and to do with you as He wilt. So again, we need to be open to that too.
And now we're this is really short in the book, but it's very intense. And now we're at step 7. Is that correct?
Yes. When ready, we say something like this: My Creator, I am now willing that you should have all of me, good and bad. I pray that you now remove from me every single defective character which stands in the way of my usefulness to you and my fellows. Grant me strength as I go out from here to do your bidding. Amen. we have then completed step 7. That's another affirmation prayer. I mean, if we're totally willing for God to, if we're willing to have God remove our character defects, at least the ones that are, in our conscious mind at that moment, saying the step 7 prayer is basically asking God and affirming that that's what we want. We're saying, God, please remove these defects of character that stand in the way of my usefulness to you, God, and my fellows. It's not a selfish prayer. I think the people that run around saying it's a selfish program, that's just one more cop out that you hear all the time. This is a selfless program. This is a program about destroying selfishness and self-centeredness in you, so you can be some good out there in the world. That's the whole trajectory of this step process. Monty, what are some of, talk a little bit about your experience with step 6 and 7. What are some of the things that you can relate from your experience?
Well, I'll tell you, this is when I see this so often. It certainly was the case with me before I was married. I was willing to do anything God wanted me to do. I told God, I'll go anywhere you want me to go. I'll do anything you want me to do. And but then when something would come up that had to do with relationships, then it was, accept that. That area is mine. And of course, God, I know that in my situation, you are, you're doing something a little different. It doesn't apply. Your word doesn't apply to me in this situation because I'm unique. And so I wouldn't let go of that. And what had happened is by holding on to something like that, particularly in relationships where there's a spiritual bond that takes place, everything else would crumble. And so I wasn't willing to let go of all of it. I also tried very, very hard to work on my character defects. I misunderstood this in the beginning. And I would do a lot of writing. I would do a lot of, this time I'm not going to do this, and next time I'm going to do this better, and then it wouldn't happen. And it was because deep down inside, I thought I could do a better job than God could.
Yeah, I agree with that. The same things have happened to me. I think that's probably the majority experience. Now, where you were hanging on to some of those relationship specifics, I think we're participating in the removal by asking God to help us be willing, and where we can make an effort to change, we make that effort, but our effort alone is insufficient.
Right. And I did run into that thing where somebody said, well, if you're not willing, ask God to help you be willing to be willing, or if you're not even willing to do that, ask him to help you be willing to be willing to be willing. And I finally gave up, and I said, okay, I'll do that. and then things started to happen.
Yeah, the power of prayer in this program is something that you have to experience to believe. I mean, when you get to the other end of these steps, you have had some unbelievable spiritual experiences. It's and it's amazing. It will make a believer out of anyone who tries it. It really will. Very few people get to the end of the steps and still have really strong atheistic or agnostic belief systems. This will chip away at those by offering so many experiences that are powerful to let you know that you are accessing that power.
Mm-hmm.
Now, okay, this is after the returning home part. We've done the 5th step. We return home where we can be quiet for an hour. Then we do step 6 and step 7, and again, action, more action. Right away, I ask the people that I'm working with that after they get up off their knees from step 7, they are to start working on their list of people and institutions that they've harmed. So let's move into that. Now we need more action, without which we find that faith without works is dead. Let's look at steps 8 and 9. We have a list of all persons we have harmed and to whom we are willing to make amends. Now, the list of people is basically the fourth column of the resentment inventory.
Mm-hmm.
Anywhere that we've recognized that our fear, the manifestation of our fear, has harmed other people, and especially the relationship inventory emphasis on sex, where we're asked to answer a bunch of those questions. A lot of times those questions are pointing to people we have harmed. So we need to hang on to the fourth step until we start working on our 8-step list. I've heard often, people said, my sponsor said after we did the fifth step to burn that inventory. And, there's an issue if you burn that inventory because you actually need it for your 8-step list. So don't burn it, after you do your fifth step unless you're in the half measures club. Okay, so we made a list of all persons we had harmed and to whom we are willing to make amends. We made it when we took inventory. We subjected ourselves to a drastic self-appraisal. Now we go out to our fellows and repair the damage done in the past. Notice that it does not say we apologize for the damage done in the past. It says we're going to go out and repair the damage done in the past. Those are two completely different things. Another thing that I've heard in a lot of fellowship meetings is, you'll be on the ninth step or something. They'll say, well, yeah, I got to step 9. I went home and, I apologized to my wife for ruining her life for the last 20 years. And you know what? She didn't take it very well. That's somebody who doesn't understand what we're going after here. We're not going after apologizing. We're going after repairing. There's going to be a lot of work involved in that. Another thing that nobody likes to hear, in contemporary fellowship meetings, that there's a lot of work you need to do. Well, I would rather tell them the truth, than watch them drink again. If you're not engaged in that work, you're not ensuring your immunity from alcohol. We attempt to sweep away the debris which has accumulated out of our effort to live on self-will and run the show ourselves. If we haven't the will to do this, we ask until it comes. There's another prayer directive. Because I'll tell you what, when I put my 8-step list together, I was willing to make amends to some of them, but I was scared about making amends to some other. I couldn't believe that I would be able to have the capacity to go and stand in front of these people. But what we're supposed to do is we're supposed to every day, probably multiple times, ask God, please give me the willingness to make these direct amends. Because our life is on the line with this stuff. Remember, it was agreed at the beginning that we would go to any length for victory over alcohol. And any length includes making direct amends and repairing the damage done in the past to the best of our ability. Probably there are still some misgivings. There's always going to be some misgivings. As we look over the list of business acquaintances and friends we have hurt, we may feel reluctant about going to some of them on a spiritual basis. Let us be reassured. To some people, we need not and probably should not emphasize the spiritual feature on our first approach. We might prejudice them. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit historically about this because it's going to explain a little bit. Emphasize the spiritual feature on our first approach. Before this book was written, this was it was a religious process. And when the Oxford Group people went back and talked about making amends, they would basically be talking about their religious experience. In other words, someone would go make an amends prior to the writing of the Big Book. They would say, listen, I've found Jesus, and for me to be able to, get a real live relationship with Jesus and to be able to overcome alcoholism, I need to set right the wrong. Now, they found through experience that sometimes saying it that way would prejudice other people. Not so much that that they weren't being honest; they were being very honest. But the fact of the matter is some people can see you as a religious fanatic if you do that. And that sometimes can reduce your effectiveness and your helpfulness to them. In other words, from my own experience, when I've made direct amends, a lot of times those people have come back to me and asked for my help, either with a loved one or for themselves. You don't want to say anything that will reduce your effectiveness in being able to help them or other people. So you don't want to be branded a religious fanatic. That's what they were talking about in this book. Bill separated out a lot of that Oxford Group stuff to make it more of a secular type of program, but he still had a lot of the vocabulary from the Oxford Group style. Does that make any sense?
Sure. So if you're going to somebody that you've stole from, especially if you've done it over and over again, you say, hey, I just got to tell you, I found God, and I'm changing here and changing there, and I'm doing all this stuff. And, what I hear a lot of folks say is, well, that's what you told me before, and, you found religion, and we have a lot of people out there that really don't understand the true definition of that.
Yeah.
And so, like you said, and it's not so much our deal as it is that's just the way people perceive things. Because later on, and that's why I like about what it says up on our first approach. That suggests that we're probably going to have other opportunities, like you said, when we can get into that. But right now, they may not. Some of them don't even want to hear your amends.
In the next paragraph, it talks about, when and where we should bring up God. But it does say in this that they're going to be more interested in a demonstration. In other words, that you are willing to try to repair the damage than apologize for it. So that's the most important thing on the agenda. At the moment, we were trying to put our lives in order, but this is not an end in itself. Our real purpose is to fit ourselves to be of maximum service to God and to the people about us. Now, that's what our real purpose is as recovered alcoholics. That's a complete shift away from selfishness and self-centeredness. We're going from a foundation, a life system foundation of selfishness and self-centeredness, to fitting ourselves with God's help to be of service to the people about us and to be about God's business. We need to keep that in mind, that's where we're headed. It is seldom wise to approach an individual who still smarts from our injustice to him and announce that we've gone religious. In the prize ring, this would be called leading with the chin. Why lay ourselves open to be branded fanatics or religious bores? We may kill a future opportunity to carry a beneficial message. Again, if we're fitting ourselves to be of maximum service, we don't want to kill any future opportunities. But our man is sure to be impressed with a sincere desire to set right the wrong. He's going to be more interested in a demonstration of goodwill than our talk of spiritual discoveries. He's going to be more interested in us paying the money back than in saying, I've found this wonderful way. So we need to be very, very practical about this. But we don't use this as an excuse for shying away from the subject of God. When it will serve any good purpose, we are willing to announce our convictions with tact and common sense. So, absolutely, if it's going to serve a purpose, let's say they, well, why are you doing this? Well, why are you doing this? Maybe that'll give you an opportunity to explain your new course of action. Listen, I'm in a recovery process from alcoholism. And for me to be able to stay away from alcohol, I need to set right the wrongs in my past. I found a very, very important spiritual direction for myself, and you can talk about God if it's gonna serve any good purpose. The question of how to approach the man we hated will arise. All right, there's different sections in the 9th step about how to approach different people. This is the man we hated. Now, here's some bad news to the half-measure crowd. If you have a resentment or you hate somebody out there, you got to confront them. All right, that's not something everybody wants to hear. But if you have the type of resentment that just boils inside you and you can't get rid of it, the best way to get rid of it is to follow this. The question of how to approach the man we hated will arise. It may be he has done us more harm than we have done him. And though we may have acquired a better attitude toward him, we are still not too keen about admitting our faults. Nevertheless, with a person we dislike, we take the bit in our teeth. It is harder to go to an enemy than to a friend, but we find it much more beneficial to us. So the more you hate somebody, the more it's going to benefit you to do this step. There has been people that have really harmed me in my life, Monty, and if I put it on paper, the harms they did to me and the harms I did to them, they did 95% more harm to me than I did to them. Okay, so that should be a justified resentment. And why should I go to them? They're the ones that harmed me. Well, here's the thing: there's no justified resentments. There are only fatal ones for an alcoholic. So I need freedom. I need to find freedom from this anger and this resentment. And it says, it is harder to go to an enemy than to a friend, but we find it much more beneficial to us. That means we can find freedom from this anger, this resentment, and this hatred by actually going to the person that we hate. And we go to him in a helpful and forgiving spirit, confessing our former ill feeling and expressing our regret. Under no condition do we criticize such a person or argue. We simply tell him that we will never get over drinking until we have done our utmost to straighten out the past. We are there to sweep off our side of the street, realizing nothing worthwhile can be accomplished until we do so, never trying to tell him what he should do. His faults are not discussed. We stick to our own. If our manner is calm, frank, and open, we will be gratified with the result. In 9 cases out of 10, the unexpected happens. Sometimes the man we are calling upon admits his own fault, so feuds of years standing melt away in an hour. Rarely do we fail to make satisfactory progress. Our former enemies will sometimes praise what we are doing and wish us well. Occasionally they will offer assistance. It should not matter, however, if someone does throw us out of his office. We've made our demonstration, done our part. It's water over the dam. So those are the instructions for going to the man we hate. Now, this is a very, very important one. A lot of people skip this one. They don't even put the person down on the 4-step inventory because they're so worried about having to go out and make amends. But I'll tell you what, how free do you want to be? And if this one sentence in here is true, nothing worthwhile can be accomplished until we do so. Nothing worthwhile can be accomplished until we go to the man we hate. What if that's actually true? That basically means that the whole program will fall apart on us if we don't. So, again, I've had experiences with this. I've had experiences where I had to take the bit in my teeth. I was not happy about going to these people. I couldn't stand these people. But I knew that if the resentment and hatred stayed in my heart, it would have a corrosive effect on any type of spiritual life I was trying to put together. So I placed the outcome in God's hands. I asked for the courage to do these things because I really, really was reluctant and had a lot of anxiety about it, but I just went out and I did it. And walking away, I found that I no longer hated or resented the person at all. I really saw them as someone who was perhaps spiritually sick, like myself, and there was no reason, there was no space in me anymore for that anger or that resentment.
So what you're saying is it's not really a good idea to say, I was wrong about this, this, and this, but you were wrong about that part, right?
Our ego will want to do that. Our ego will want to say, I did this basically because you did that, but I went ahead and did this and I was wrong. Their faults are not discussed.
Right.
There's been times where people wanted to make amends to me in the middle of me making amends to them, and what I've said to them is basically, look, I'm here because of my side of the street. If you'd like to make an appointment with me at some other time and discuss, anything you want to discuss with me, that's really great. But what this whole meeting is about is for me to lay out, where I've been at fault and see how I can repair the damage. So if you don't mind, I'd like to stick to that topic. Sometimes I've done that. Sometimes I've let them, talk. A lot of times these amends are very, very healing for the people who you're making amends to. And also, some of the things I'll do in an amends is I'll ask 3 questions after I'm done. I'll lay out the harm I'm clear on, and then I'll ask them 3 questions. Number 1, have I left anything out? Is there any other way I have harmed you that I'm unaware of? And I will let them talk. Okay? Mm-hmm. That's question number 1. Question number 2 is, do you need to tell me how this made you feel? Do you need to talk about how this affected you? Okay? The way I treated you affected you. Then I stop and I let them talk. This is allowing them to vent, allowing them to heal. And then the third question, which is very, very important, is, what do I need to do to set right this wrong? If I'm not clear on it myself, if it's paying back money, you pay back money. But if it's for a lifetime of oppressive behavior, I'll ask the person, what do I need to do to set right this wrong? And if it's appropriate, if it's ethical, if it's legal, and if it's possible, I will do what they ask me to do, because that's how you complete an amends like this.
Gotcha.
Does that make any sense?
Yes, it makes a lot of sense. And the amends thing, you're amending what you did, correct? You're changing.
All right, think of the term amendment. We've got amendments to our constitutions, okay? An amendment to a constitution is basically, adding a whole new piece to make right the whole. To amend something is to change it. So again, I'll say this 100 times if I say it once, we're not going there to apologize. Although an apology might be part of the amends. That's not what we're there for. We're really there to demonstrate to them that we're willing to set right the wrong and to figure out how the heck to do that. Because we might have an idea of how to set right this wrong, but that might not be their idea. And we're very presumptuous to conclude to ourselves how to set right the wrongs that we've done. So sometimes we need to be open to what they think we need to do to set right the wrongs.
Sure. Now,
right, money.
Yeah.
Sometimes we owe money, don't we, Monty?
Yeah. Ouch.
Sometimes, listen, a lot of my friends, hadn't even, filed taxes for 20 years. These type of things, they're problems, and you have to address them. Most alcoholics owe money. We do not dodge our creditors. We can't hide from our creditors. We're not supposed to dodge them. Telling them what we are trying to do, we make no bones about our drinking. They usually know about it anyway, whether we think so or not. Nor are we afraid of disclosing our alcoholism on the theory that it may cause financial harm. Approached in this way, the most ruthless creditor will sometimes surprise us. Arranging the best deal we can, we let these people know we are sorry, our drinking has made us slow to pay. We must lose our fear of creditors, no matter how far we have to go, for we are liable to drink if we're afraid to face them. There's a couple of places in this book that tells us important warning signs about drinking. Being afraid to face creditors is one of them. Now, I'm an egotistical alcoholic. What I want to do is I owe Visa $2,000. Okay, What I want to do is I want to wait until I have $2,000. I want to walk into the Visa office and I want to throw $2,000 down and say, "Here's your money." But the fact of the matter is I don't have $2,000 right now. So what I need to do is I need to let these creditors know where I stand. That they like to know what's going on, these people. The thing that makes them the most afraid is for you to disappear off the face of the earth, to not answer phone calls, to not return letters, to just stick your head in the sand. That's the worst thing you can do with these creditors. What you need to do is you need to let them know what's going on. You need to arrange the best deal you can. If all you can afford is $100 a month and they want $200, you just tell them, look, all I can afford is $100 a month. I'm going to be sending it to you. You can not cash the check if you want, but that's all I can afford. And you know what? They're going to be cashing the check. And a lot of times they help They help you by, the best deal you can make, agreeing to it, And I'll tell you what, it took me about 7 years to clean up the financial amends that I had. I've known people that it's taken 20 years to clean it up. As long as we're about the business of cleaning it up, we're going to be safe and protected. The minute we stick our head in the sand and pretend that these creditors don't exist, then we place ourselves in the unenviable position of being susceptible to the obsession of the mind coming back and drinking again. How about criminal offenses, Monty? You ever do any crimes out there?
No, never.
Neither did I. So this is only my opinion. Far be it from me to have had criminal activity in my past.
Yeah.
Well, let's just assume hypothetically that we have had some criminal activity in the past. Perhaps we have committed a criminal offense which might land us in jail if it were known to the authorities. We may be short in our accounts and unable to make good. We've already admitted this in confidence to another person in our fifth step, but we are sure that we would be imprisoned or lose our job if it were known. Maybe it's only a petty offense, such as padding the expense account. Most of us have done that sort of thing. Maybe we are divorced and have remarried but haven't kept up alimony to number one. She is indignant about it and has a warrant out for our arrest. That's a common form of trouble, too. Although these reparations take innumerable forms, there are some general principles which we find guiding. Reminding ourselves that we have decided to go to any lengths to find a spiritual experience, we ask that we be given the strength and direction to do the right thing, no matter what the personal consequences may be. Quite possibly the stupidest thing I ever heard in a 12-step meeting was it was on this step. Somebody raised their hand and said, I had a list of all the people that I had harmed, and I showed it to my sponsor, and my sponsor said, listen, it says except when the do so would harm others, and you're an other, so it'll harm you to go do all this, so you don't have to do it.
I've heard that, yeah.
You need to know about this step is you are not others. If it's going to harm you too bad, that's the spiritual exercise you need to take to overcome drinking. We're really not supposed to consider the personal consequences at all, unless other people are involved. We may lose our position or reputation or face jail, but we are willing. We have to be. We must not shrink in anything. There's only been 2 times, Monty, that I've taken people through the steps where they've ended up going to jail because they made their 9th-step amends. And both times, they would have ended up in jail anyway because there was big-time warrants out for their arrest. One time, I was talking with this guy, and he had to go back to Colorado because he'd skipped bail. And he jumped bail, and he didn't want to go to jail, so he just disappeared into another state. Now, you can't stay sober looking over your shoulder the rest of your life. So he really was going through these steps. He was really determined to find a spiritual experience. He went back to Colorado. He said, I'm here. I'm turning myself in. I've got, 9 outstanding warrants. And he did about 3 months in jail. He probably would have done 3 years in jail if they found him and extradited him. So again, what are you going to do? How do you want to live in the future? How free do you want to be? We must not shrink at anything. Now, usually, though, however, other people are involved. Therefore, we are not to be the hasty and foolish martyr who would needlessly sacrifice others to save himself from the alcoholic pit. Let's say you're supporting a family and you have outstanding warrants. Now you need to sit down with the family and you need to explain to them what you need to do. And, they need to be okay with it to a certain degree. Because if you're, say, the sole support for that family, before you run off and put yourself in prison or whatever, or start sending all of your money, to pay off amends, you need to get permission from the people who are depending on you. So again, if you are a family, a supporter in your family, you need to get agreement from the family. You need to make sure that they're okay with it, because you can't just run off and save yourself and then harm everybody else around you.
So you can't you can't just, well, I mean, what you're going to have to do in a lot of cases is you're going to have to come clean about some things that maybe your family didn't know about.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We need to be fearless, thorough, and rigorously honest. And sometimes that means with the family. So again, another instance. I'll give you an example of this. I was living in another state, and I got thrown out of a house. This is way back in the 70s, and they told us we have a month to get out, and I was really upset that they threw us out, even though it was because of having parties till 3 in the morning and all the neighbors complaining. So I decided to have a house trashing party, and what I did was I invited everybody over, and we literally tore the house apart. There wasn't a door or a window or a wall that wasn't damaged. The chimney was kicked off the top of the house, Monty. Now, I forgot all about this. Till like my second or third inventory. And all of a sudden it came to me like, oh no, I got to set this right. And this is like 20 years later. So I did absolutely everything I could to find these people, but there were other people involved. Now, there were 2 other roommates that I had, okay? Mm-hmm. One of them was dead from cirrhosis of the liver, surprise, surprise. The other one I contacted, and I said, look, here's what I want to do. I want to track down these people, and I want to make direct amends to them. Do you have any problem with that? And he goes, no, I don't have any problem at all. Just don't tell them where I am. So I said, okay, fine. So I did my absolute best to track these people down. Private investigators, internet searches. I couldn't find them. I made my amends in a different way. I got the money back out into the universe. So I balanced the scales to the best of my ability. But I had to talk to the other living roommate, because making a direct amends, could have impacted him. So I needed to gain his permission. If you've done crimes with other people, if you did a B&E and you want to make amends for it, you cannot implicate the other people who were doing the crime with you. You're just not supposed to do those things. Here we talk about a man we know had remarried. Because of resentment and drinking, he had not paid alimony to his first wife. She was furious. She went to court and got an order for his arrest. He had commenced our way of life, had secured a position, and was getting his head above water. It would have been impressive heroics if he had walked up to the judge and said, here I am. We thought he ought to be willing to do that if necessary, but if he were in jail, he could provide nothing for either family. We suggested he write his first wife, admitting his faults and asking forgiveness. He did, and also sent a small amount of money. He told her what he would be willing to try to do in the future. He said he was perfectly willing to go to jail if she insisted. Of course she did not, and the whole situation has since been adjusted. Before taking drastic action which might implicate other people, we secure their consent. If we have obtained permission, have consulted with others, asked God to help, and the drastic step is indicated, we must not shrink. So we need to use tact and common sense, and I'll tell you what, before you run off and make amends, I highly recommend talking to an experienced sponsor or spiritual advisor who has completed their amends, who has experience with doing amends. So many people in the modern recovery fellowships really haven't done this step. So going to those people, it's like you're just going to get an opinion. You're not going to get experience. And another thing is I really try not to share my opinion. Let's say somebody comes to me and they've got a problem with the IRS. I never had a problem with the IRS. I always paid my taxes just because I was afraid that I didn't want them knocking on my door. Yet a lot of people have come to me with amends that they need to make to the IRS. What I will do is I will send them to somebody who has made amends to the IRS and who can tell them what that looks like and what they can expect. I am not just going to tell them, oh, yeah, you just go down there, because maybe that's not the best way. Maybe you need to get a tax accountant involved and get all your records together and then go to a tax attorney and have the tax attorney help you with the process. That may be what you need to do, but I don't know because I don't have experience with it. So I'm not afraid to point people to experienced members of the fellowship. I'm not opposed to doing that because I don't want to share my opinions. Opinions kill. Experience saves. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you bet. I understand that completely. Chris, we're almost out of time.
All right, we're gonna stop at the top of page 80, and we're gonna pick up, I guess, again next week. Monty, you got anything to share with us?
Well, I will share with you this. When it comes to amends, and I've had issue with this. We've all heard about living amends, and I think a lot of times, I know with me, and I will admit to it, I have made it an excuse not to make direct amends out of fear, and instead did what I had interpreted as a living amends. Here's the example. Stealing or shoplifting from a store and being afraid to go and make that amends for that. So what I did was, for a couple of months, I would take shopping carts back from the parking lot to the store. Therefore, I made my living amends. I think that's hogwash.
You know, I'm not saying it's necessarily a bad thing to take the shopping carts back.
Right.
But what you're doing is, if you're going to place yourself in maximum benefit, maximum usefulness to God and other people, if you go and you make a direct amends to the shopkeeper, telling him what you did and offering to pay the money back, what can happen is, if that shopkeeper ever has somebody who's suffering from alcoholism, or if he himself is suffering from alcoholism, you can leave him contact information so you can actually be of help. Now, I know a lot of people who've, just sent money anonymously back instead of, making the direct amends. That's not really what the exercise is about. We have fear sometimes about facing the people we have harmed. We have to ask God to help us overcome that fear and face these things. You want to be free, you face these people. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And if you don't have the gumption right at this moment to do it, ask God until you do have the courage to do it. At living amends, how I see the appropriate utilization of living amends is in family situations. You make a direct amends. Absolutely, you make a direct amends to them. You sit down and you go over all the things that you've done in the past. You ask them, how do I need to set right this wrong? And then there's a living amend portion that'll follow that. You are going to try to be the best family member you can be from that point on. That's a living amends. But this step isn't about living amends. It's about direct
amends.
So is there a way to do living amends that's appropriate and in the spirit of this? Absolutely. But you don't do it instead of. You do it as well as.
Yeah.
Does that make any sense?
It makes total sense, and there is, I will say, out of experience, listeners, there is an enormous amount of freedom that takes place, and you know what? Out of the amends that I've had to make, the most difficult ones, I'm still alive. I didn't die. I've gone to prison, but I'm still here. And, sometimes you just have to face the consequences and you do it. But the freedom that comes from that is it's amazing. It's amazing. And I'll tell you, just like you said, do you want to be free? How free do you want to be?
Two people who I was guiding through amends. One of them, I had to send him into maximum security prison to make direct amends to one of the bosses of organized crime. Because if he didn't, he might have been killed, and he's still alive. Okay? Another person I actually sent back to a bone-breaking loan shark, okay, who basically has the boys, Three-Finger Louie, come out and break your legs if you don't come up with the Vic on Tuesday. He disappeared on this guy years before, and he was scared to death to go back to the guy. But I said, well, what do you want? What do you want to do? You want him to find you someday by accident, or do you want to face this? And he actually went and made a phone call, told the guy he was coming over, knocked on the door, and told him what was going on in his life. Do you know he owed the guy $2,000 that he borrowed? The Vic had made it hundreds of thousands of dollars. Do you know this guy forgave him his debt? All he needed to do was help him with some painting.
Really?
That was not what he really didn't expect to come back. You know, but sometimes these creditors will surprise you. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, listen. If I'm coming back to you and I'm humble and I'm honest and I'm really showing a desire to set right the wrong, why in the world would you punish me? You know?
Yeah.
It's our ego that makes us believe that it's going to be a terrible negative consequence. You know, that's the part of our ego that we need to kill.
Yeah. Yeah. Otherwise, we are doomed to drink again, or worse. You know, I tell people that all the time. You know, well, you know, at least I didn't drink. You know, I kicked the cat and slept with the neighbor's wife, but at least I didn't drink. There are things out there that will kill you that you'll fall back into if you don't take care of business.
Living an unrecovered life without alcohol is dying an alcoholic death.
Yeah, very well put. Chris, thank you once again for a great show. Folks, you can play this show over again. If you would like an MP3 file of this show, we're doing something a little different. Please email me at take12radio@comcast.net. And if you're going to if you want me to send it to a different email, make sure that you include that. And there you go.
Monty, thank you so much. It's been a blast.
Hey, man, have a good trip today.
Okay.
All right, and say hi to everybody for me.
All right, take care.
All right, buddy. We'll see you later. Until our next broadcast, when we walk through the big book, this is the Monty'man and Chris Schroeder, and we're wishing God's serenity for you.
This has been a broadcast of KHLT Recovery Broadcasting.